Don't forget to do not disturb your phone. I just did mine.
Okay, we got you,
Already pressed
Tana.
it, Kim. We're ready. Go, Kim.
Okay.
Good afternoon and welcome to Red Door Conversations. I am your co host, Lisa White, and I would like to introduce my other co host. We have Kimberly Dixon Dudley, who is located in the Museum District area. Say hello, Kim.
Hey, how y'all doing out there?
Wonderful. And we have the lovely Marla Lewis, who is in the Clear Lake area.
Well, hello. How are you guys?
And we have last but certainly not least, we have Tana Young from the Woodlands. Say hi, Tana.
Hello, everyone. Happy Friday.
Yes, yes. Guys, today's show is called The Color of Law. And it was inspired by the book entitled The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein. He gives an in-depth look as it relates to the unjust and unfair treatment of African Americans as it relates to home ownership. So let's get into it, guys. Have you ever wondered why, as a child growing up, it was such a rare occurrence to see a family member accomplish the American dream? If you didn't, I certainly did. As a child, my mom moved from apartment to apartment, and it wasn't until my sophomore year in high school that we moved into a home. And I was so elated. I was very excited about it. But the truth of the matter is that my mother was renting, my mother and my stepfather were renting the home. And so today we're going to discuss why home ownership was unattainable for most African Americans. Richard Rothstein, he notes in The Color of Law that the lack of home ownership as it pertains to African Americans, it is a deliberate product of systemic and forceful government action planned and implemented by all levels of American government. Residential, racial segregation impoverishes and disempowers African Americans by confining them to ghettos and blocking them out of homeownership. Rothstein also argues that because this was a deliberate action by the government, that they have a constitutional and a moral obligation to remedy that. And so we're going to get into the color of law just a little bit more now. And I'm going to turn the floor over to Kimberly Dixon Dudley. She's going to give us some details about that and just kind of what happened.
So to your point, Lisa, the book itself is really a historical document. So it gives a really clear and succinct timeline of what you said, government-sponsored residential segregation and discrimination. It highlights really how effective laws and regulations like deed restrictions were and have been till this day. And it shaped the narrative about, where we are as African Americans, how we operate in the African American community and in the real estate community. What I really like about the book itself, and this is important for our audience to know, it's really easy to read. It's easy to read, it's easy to follow, but it does not allow you to self-soothe yourself and to believe in what's happening in the African American community is some type of accident. I mean, it gives a very purposeful timeline of how we had a civil rights law passed in 1866, and 100 years later is when we really had it enforced through the Fair Housing Act. And so it doesn't, if you're reading the book or listening to it, you can download it on audiobook. But as you know, Lisa, if you try to buy it at a bookstore, it's probably sold out. That's how that's how good the book is, and that's how important the conversation is. But when we think about, just approaching real estate as a homeowner, as a buyer, as a real estate professional, just be certain that you understand that a lot of things were purposeful. There were a lot of laws that were not very that were egregious to the African American community, and they were legal. They when people were discriminating against African Americans, that they weren't doing anything that wasn't unconstitutional at the time. So it's not that we're perfect nation or a perfect democracy. We've gotten it wrong, but I think the book gives us an opportunity to see where our wrongs were and address them in a specific and very strategic way. So to that point, I think, Lisa, we were talking about targeted communities and how certain communities have been targeted and displaced. And the book really elaborates on that, but you have some information to that too, right?
I do. I'm going to start that out by talking about the racial and restrictive covenants that were created. When we talk about communities, we had communities were specific to the African American people, and we had communities that were specific to white America. And white America wanted to make sure, guys, that Black America did not live together. And so by doing that, they created what we call a racial or restrictive covenant. Now, this was a contract among the owners within that white community. And every homeowner that signed that contract, they were agreeing that when they got ready to sell their home, that they would not sell it to an African American. They would only sell it to another white American family. And if you didn't sign that contract, then you could sell to whomever you wanted to. So that particular type of covenant, it wasn't 100% proof that this neighborhood would not at some point become integrated. And so because that was not 100%, proof that that they would not allow Black Americans into that community, they then created what we know today as community associations. And so within that community association, you could put together the bylaws, the restrictions, and the covenants pertaining to that specific community. And we do have a community right here in Houston that's right outside of Acres Home. It's called Oak Forest. That community still to this day has that they do not want you to sell to a black American. And we have a video that KHOU, courtesy of KHOU 11, we don't own the rights to that video, but this is something that was just done 3 days ago, and we want you to take a look at that. You can X out of it and then start it up again, Kim. Just X out of it and start it up again. And while she gets the video ready, I do also want to mention, okay, here it is.
Sorry.
That's okay. You can just skip the ads and we'll get to that's no problem at all, Kim.
It's one of Houston's oldest neighborhoods.
Turn it up.
Proud to be a part of it, but it was, founded in the late 40s.
And the language in some of the founding documents, St. Stephen's United Methodist pastor Nathan Lonsdale Bledsoe felt compelled to call out in a recent sermon.
I've heard from a lot of people that have bought houses in the neighborhood lately that when they read that particular passage, it was really jarring to them.
We found the language on the Homeowners Association website stating only people of Caucasian race can own or live in a home.
We too are just learning about this process.
At the HOA's virtual meeting tonight, board members told concerned neighbors who joined the Zoom it was unenforceable. A note on the HOA's website mentions the Fair Housing Act of 1968, but several neighbors spoke up, saying the pain still exists.
And so that legacy lives on.
KHOU's legal analyst says the HOA can and should change the wording.
All I want to do is say we're not going to enforce this is a tired, old argument.
Board members said others have tried before, but the work to change it was more difficult than it first seemed. This pastor says now's the time.
the fact that something takes a lot of work doesn't mean that it's not worth doing.
The HOA says it's consulting its attorney and will have another update next month. Meantime, several neighbors volunteered their own time and effort, saying they want to get this done faster. Back to you.
Okay, guys. So you see, as of June the 12th, 2020, Oak Forest is not the only neighborhood, but it is one of the neighborhoods that they will not allow you to sell to an African American. And just to give you a little bit more information, the Supreme Court they ruled that this was unconstitutional and you should not be able to do that. However, the big man FHA said that it did not violate the Constitution because they were private agreements. So the fact that it was a private agreement allowed them to still be able to not sell to African American families. And this is just absurd. And so when you have something like this that happens, then you have Black America being put in certain areas where the resources aren't good, the schools aren't good, nothing about it is good. And which leads us to the next topic on the show, which is redlining. And we're going to have Marla Lewis talk to you a little bit about redlining.
Well, first of all, with redlining, I want people to understand what it is. And basically, it's a practice where mortgage lenders were taking a map and drawing a red line, per se, on this map to indicate areas or neighborhoods in which that particular bank did not want to make loans. It's been since held as an illegal practice. However, what I do want people to know are a few things. One, I want people to know, as Lisa stated, the video that we just showed you was from June 12th, 2020. Right. And so a lot of people will say, well, you know, that was so long ago. That's way back when. Why are we still talking about it? I'll tell you why we're still talking about it. We're still talking about it because there are things that have been going on for years. And I want to talk about kind of the remnants of the redlining that was allowed to happen. One, sellers who were in these areas who owned property, that created a situation where they only had a certain pool of buyers that they could sell to. Because think about it, just think about it in today's society, just think about this. You live in the home that you live in, but the banks are not, let's say 5 of the largest banks are not loaning any money in those areas. What does that do to the pool of buyers that may be interested in your home? How does that devalue your home? And also, not just in real estate, because we talk about real estate because we're real estate professionals. That's what we do. However, let's think about it just from a whole family standpoint. Your home that you're selling is devalued because of where it is, devalued because of the pool of buyers or lack thereof, because they're not lending in those particular areas due to redlining. And then you have millions of dollars that were in equity that was missed throughout families. We're talking about generational wealth because we all know that real estate used properly creates generational wealth, right?
That's a good point.
So that is an excellent point.
Yeah, so if you have that and you missed out on it because of these certain things that were going on, well, you know, we can say it happened a long time ago, maybe so, but when $10,000, $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 in equity was missed out on, that makes a difference between your son or daughter working at the chicken hut or becoming a surgeon. You understand what I'm saying? So this is why these things are still important to us. This is why these things still matter. Also, because of the redlining, you guys know we have now the CRA, or Community Reinvestment Act, that says that banks that are doing business within a certain area must reinvest in that particular community. Now, I've heard some pushback on this CRA stuff, right?
Really?
Because, yes. Oh, absolutely. Kim, people say, well, you know, yes, Kim, there has been great talk about CRA going away. Absolutely.
But why? What's the argument?
Why? Because now it's not needed. That was a long time ago.
Oh, affirmative action. This is another affirmative action. We don't need
exactly.
That. Okay.
But here's the thing. Here's what we need to make sure that we understand, and we don't ever forget. It was created for a reason, and that CRA is what is supposed to help to make the communities stronger. And that's why it's so important today, you know, with everything that's going on right now. As I stated, people are saying, well, you know, that's so old, that's so long ago, but the remnants are still there.
Not, right.
The effects
and
still there.
And Marla, to your point, the effects are still there, but so is the benefit. Like, let's not forget that there were people who still you may not have contributed in that, but you still benefit from it.
Absolutely. And right. I'll tell you one way. Take a home that a grandmother had, let's say in the McGregor area. Everybody knows that the McGregor area is an upcoming and awesome, amazing area, right?
I like it.
Let's take a house that's 10,000 square feet, right?
Yeah.
Take that same house and place it in Bel Air. How much more is that home worth? How does that affect not just a family? How does that affect generations? You understand what I'm saying? So with that being said, buyers then, they had to struggle in those areas where the redlining was taking place. Not only once they bought the house, could they have a major issue trying to sell it to be, like we talk to people now, and we talk to them about, this is your starter home, you could be a move-up buyer, and so on and so forth. Well, it made it very difficult back then. And before they even got to be a seller, they had to first struggle and fight very hard to come up with money to become a buyer, because they were not lending in those areas.
And to that point, with the book, The Color of Law, so just going into chapter 6, talking about white flight, we have been dealing with this for a very long time. It has been something, with African Americans, because the credit hasn't been, some of the credit hasn't been where it needs to be. Some of these, buyers, they were put into neighborhoods and they were able to purchase homes, but they purchased homes at extremely inflated prices. And so those buyers were called contract buyers. Real estate agents, spectators would go into these neighborhoods. They would scare white people and tell them they had to leave. And it went as far as having arranged burglaries so that white people would leave their neighborhoods, move African Americans in, knowing that they were charging them too much for rent and that they would eventually default on it. And then they would get the next group of people in, or the next person.
Wow.
This has been going on for so long, for so long. And, I want to talk about FHA and predatory lending. So let's just begin with FHA. It's a mortgage insured by it's insured by FHA approved lender by Federal Housing Administration, right? So FHA loans is designed for low to moderate income borrowers. FHA loans, they do require a lower minimum down payments, and the credit scores, they're not as high as like a conventional loan. Okay, and so then we have predatory lending. Now that's in any lending practice that imposes unfair and abusive loan terms on a borrower. Predatory lending, it does benefit the lender at the expense of the borrower, such as charging higher rates and charging higher fees.
So, Tana, I don't want to interrupt you, but I have to make this point. Otherwise, I'm
Go
gonna
ahead.
I'm gonna lose it. It's gonna seep out on.
Give it to us.
So that last point that you just made, and I don't know how many people are aware of this, but you can Google it. Wells Fargo, publicly paid a pretty hefty sum in 2019 or 2018 for just those type of loans, those type of predatory lending, and also discriminated. I
think it was 2018.
2018 lending, having discriminatory lending practices, basically. So it's not that it's so long ago, right, Marla? It's not that it's
we're still dealing with it right now,
right? It's not even remnants. It's actually actively happening right now. But you said something earlier, Tana, about the FHA loans, right? That, I mean, in our industry, sometimes people will get a contract with an FHA approved buyer, and they're like, oh, well, I don't think that buyer's really qualified, or we're considering an offer with a conventional loan, and it's such a misstep in thinking, because like FHA borrowers, right?
Yes, I mean I have certainly dealt with that from other agents saying, no, that's FHA. Well, we need we need your client to get approved again through our lender. We need to make sure that they definitely are approved, just because they saw that the loan terms was FHA.
It is the perception that when you are an FHA borrower, that you don't have enough liquid cash in the event that something happens. Let's just say that the appraisal doesn't come back at contract price. Then it is perceived that a conventional client or borrower would have the liquid cash available to be able to meet, exactly. But the perception is your FHA borrower
will not.
Will not. And so, but it's unfair. Let's just say that it is unfair. It is unfair.
It's very unfair, Lisa, because here's the deal. You have conventional products out there that the down payment is 3%. And we know that on FHA it's 3.5%. But there are conventional products out there that are 3% down payment as well. Now, most times it requires a higher credit score, but just because I have a higher credit score, does that mean that I have more cash?
Absolutely
exactly.
No.
And so what has had to happen, Marla, to your point, is that lenders have kind of had to get smart about it, because although this buyer may be ideal for that FHA loan, they've had to create a conventional product so that the discrimination does not take place.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
So are you saying that's why lenders are instituted the 3% down lending product to compete with FHA?
That's correct.
Buyers. Absolutely.
Because remember, Kim, it used to be 5% down.
For conventional.
Remember? And so they turned around. Conventional said, oh no, we definitely got to compete with FHA. Because FHA is getting all these, borrowers. So they had to go ahead and lower it down to 3.5%. And that happened how many years? It hasn't even been that long. It's been
at least just within the last 5 years.
Yeah, I was going to say, going to say 3, but 5. I think it's been more like 5.
Let me read something just so that we can kind of summarize the predatory lending and different things like that. This is from The Color of Law as well. This is like a summarization that Mr. Rothstein stated. And he said predatory mortgages were issued based on race, and those who suffered from them were unable to access further credit. It is clear that the government's support for subprime lenders has systematically discriminated against African American people and deprived many of the equal protection they are guaranteed by the 5th and 14th Amendments. The resurgence of the contract buying system shows how little the United States has learned in the last half century and provides uncontrollable proof that systematic de jure housing discrimination continues in the 21st century. And he said, what's more, the government has done virtually nothing to compensate the victims of predatory loans, while none of the bank executives who coordinated the scam mortgages has been seriously punished. Guys, this was some serious, unethical.
It was strategic.
Yes.
That's what it was. Very strategic.
Yes.
And so I'm going to tell you, modern day predatory fraud situation neighborhood that's over there in Fresno, which is Till Run. When that community was built, they told homeowners that their mortgages would be one thing. After they were in that home for a year, I know people whose mortgages went up $400, $500, $600.
They were.
And Lisa, I had there's a neighborhood. I don't know if I can say the builder's name who was doing exactly this. Can I say the builder's name?
Let's not go there.
I know. But there's a builder in Conroe, and what this builder did was hire a salesperson to go out and to market, to target people with low credit scores, with bad credit, and move them into this neighborhood and pay inflated prices. They rented the houses out and convinced the people, oh yeah, you're definitely gonna be able to buy it. And this man, what he was doing, I wish I could say his name.
It's called a contract for deed. That's what you're saying. He would tell them, we're gonna give you a contract.
So he was writing up contracts, okay? And he was saying, part of what I do is I offer this service to you and I'm gonna fix your credit. But what he was doing was disputing everything, boosting their credit scores up, temporary, right? But then it would pull it back down because he's online disputing. And he would get these people in, and they would pay just crazy amounts for these homes, for renting them out, believing that they would eventually be able to buy them. And a lot of those people had to move out of those houses, okay, and to move somewhere else. And so then the builder would go ahead and sell the house at market value now, or maybe, because then they got their money out of it from the people that paid these high amounts in rent. This is still going on. Yeah. This is still going on. It hasn't stopped.
So what the book, The Color of Law, did for me at least, is it's just a reminder, like we just keep saying, this is a clear and present issue. It's not something that happened in history, although history has impacted it, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't want to put a negative connotation on the African American buyer, because although some folks may have credit challenges, but there are all these other layers that go into why your credit is the way it is, and mm-hmm. instead of just saying, okay, your credit is bad. Well, there are these income disparities, there are these health disparities, all endorsed by our federal government to some degree. Correct. So that's what the book really did. It kind of tied it all in, made it make sense. We're not vilifying people with bad credit. We know that those challenges happen sometimes on purpose, but more times than not, it's not purposeful. Happens. People don't mm-hmm. go through life wanting to not pay debt, generally speaking. But the strategy of it all is what I just kept I kept hearing in this. It's a strategy. And so when we talk about what can we do? What can we do about it? What can we do now? We know what happened historically. We know what's happening right now. And I get so frustrated. People tell me, oh, voting doesn't matter. Voting is not important. I want someone to show me an instance, a real instance in history where that was true. Like, just point it out, So for me, I was thinking, to be a part of a democracy, you really have to understand what it is. And there aren't a lot of civics courses going around in school, and kids just really don't know. We had a council member on one of the previous shows, and he was talking about federal, state, and local government and how they all operate differently. We don't know some of that as adults. So it's important that we keep having these type of conversations and putting out into the public sphere. This is how you change the narrative. There are going to be private practices, but we have power within our government, within our voice, within our vote to change policies, public policy. So like right now, we have a runoff that's coming up July 14th, a pretty big one. We have a U.S. Texas State Senate seat that's up, for grabs right now. There's the Republican incumbent, and there is a runoff for the Democratic nominee. And so if you don't know who these people are, we're going to put a link in our Facebook page to harrisvotes.com. You can pull your sample ballot. It'll tell you everybody that's on your ballot. If you don't know who they are, what they do, Google their names, Google their affiliations, Google how they voted if they're an incumbent. Understand that people wait in lines to voice their vote because the people they put in Congress change laws. We talked about the Supreme Court. The person who is going to be nominated for this U.S. State Senate seat in Texas will have a voice regarding our Texas Supreme Court justices. So if you don't like the way your family courts are run or your school board is run, vote in those districts, those races too, because they matter. Don't just vote in the presidential, because when you're in family court is the last and the wrong time to be mad about how it's operating when you have an opportunity to do it on the
right.
front end.
And your local elections are what matters most. That's going to, ensure you get the resources that your community need and all of those good things. So you have to make sure that you're very passionate about those local elections.
Right, and understand how they impact your everyday life.
Correct.
Another race that's important that's on the July 14th ballot is the county commissioner seat in Southwest Houston. If you don't know what a county commissioner does, they orchestrate a budget for your tax dollars and how they're going to be spent for your roads, your bridges, your health care. So it's the wrong time to complain about it once these people are elected.
That's right.
You got a moment right now to make if you're mad about something, you're frustrated, you feel disadvantaged at some point, you got a chance to make a difference right now. So Google these people. Don't take our word for it. Don't take anybody's word. We got time. Google people's records and what they stand for and decide if they align with your values and put those people in office so they can change the policies that impact your everyday life. That's all I have to say about that.
Amen, Kim. Good job.
It's so important. Everything that we've talked about is just really important. And Kim, you brought it home with, voting, because that will change things. And people have to understand that, like you said, it's too late. If you're in a situation, it's over. It's too late. Mm-hmm. Get out there, vote, and let the people know what it is that you want. That's one way that we're going to be able to overcome a lot of the things that are going on within communities. Mm-hmm. I also wanted to mention, I wanted to just go back real briefly to that FHA loan, because, the stigma, I hate it. I want to say that the FHA loan is not, it never was an African-American loan.
There you go.
I represent all kinds and all backgrounds of people. And that loan has allowed a lot of people that otherwise would not be able to become homeowners to do that. And so I don't want anybody to feel that there is a stigma or, what if I need that to purchase my first home or even my second home?
Right.
Who cares? Let's do it. I just want to thank you ladies as always. I enjoyed the show today, and I want to thank our listeners for tuning in. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We're on Facebook, Instagram. Yes. What else, Tana? How else can they reach us?
They can, that's basically it. Just go to Facebook or Instagram. Of course,
they can subscribe to the YouTube. Yes, subscribe to the YouTube page. Before we go, we got a lot of comments that I wanted you guys to hear.
Oh, yes.
Cherokeeta says that this is very informative. Mr. Donald Naylor Jr. says, excellent teaching and education, ladies. And we have a fellow realtor that is commenting, and she's talking about, she says, Sharonda Hill says, redlining has transitioned into gentrification in some areas.
Yes.
Sounds
Good point.
That sounds
Very
like a part
good
2
point.
of
I
the
love
show.
that. Yes.
So guys, we will be having a part 2 to The Color of Law next Friday, same time, same place.
We encourage you guys to go ahead and get the book. You know, if you don't have time to read it, do like me and listen to the audio book. So you know, you can engage.
But I promise you, when you read this book,
you're gonna love it.
Your whole thought process as it pertains to African American homeownership will change. Thank you guys for joining us, and you guys have a wonderful weekend.
Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.